flanked by his Secretary of State, UN Ambassador, and National Security Advisor. President Trump is turning up the heat on North Korea for a third time this week. Late tonight, asked, is the U.S. going to war?
I think you know the answer to that.
Warning leader Kim Jong-un.
This man will not get away with what he's doing, believe me. And if he utters one threat in the form of an overt threat, or if he does anything with respect to Guam or any place else that's an American territory or an American ally, he will truly regret it, and he will regret it fast.
This morning, Mr. Trump using another bullhorn, tweeting, military solutions are now fully in place, locked and loaded. Should North Korea act unwisely, hopefully Kim Jong-un will find another path. NBC's Peter Alexander pressing him.
Mr. President, what do you mean by military solutions are locked and loaded as it relates to North Korea?
Well, I think it's pretty obvious. We are looking at that very carefully. And I hope that they are going to fully understand the gravity of what I said. And what I said is what I mean.
In terms of being locked and loaded, the U.S. military is always at a heightened state of readiness on the Korean Peninsula. Pentagon officials tell NBC News so far they haven't moved in any new military hardware and stress the region is already armed with deep penetrating missiles, B-1 bombers in Guam, Navy destroyers and submarines. The North Korean government is firing back at the president's stepped-up rhetoric, accusing the U.S. of driving the crisis to the brink of a nuclear war, adding, we consider the U.S. no more than a lump, which we can beat to a jelly any time.
Heard from North Korean state TV saying, we consider the U.S. no more than a lump, which we can beat to a jelly any time.
Let me hear Kim Jong-un say it, okay? He's not saying it.
Tonight, international partners from China to Germany are urging all sides to turn down the heat. The president defiant.
My critics are only saying that because it's me. If somebody else uttered the exact same words that I uttered, they'd say, what a great statement, what a wonderful statement.
The president will speak with the president of China tonight as he considers a stiffer round of sanctions against North Korea. And on another international crisis, Venezuela, Mr. Trump not ruling out military action. The president also taking yet another swipe at his fellow Republican Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, whom he blames for failing to repeal and replace Obamacare. Lester.
All right, Kristen Welker with the president in New Jersey. Thank you.
First, I got to ask you about the rhetoric from Donald Trump. You know, he continues to use pretty choice diction to throw threats and warnings at North Korea. What do you make of the rhetoric, and what kind of impact could it have on North Korea?
Well, I think there's two things about it. I mean, one is the pace. We're getting almost daily comments, you know, that are driving news cycles in terms of the president directly responding either to something the North Koreans say or just to the situation. So that's one issue where, you know, at what point does this intensity become unsustainable? And kind of related to that is it's basically escalatory language. And I think actually the subtext of Xi Jinping's comment is that he's not only speaking to Kim Jong-un, he's speaking to Donald Trump and basically saying both of you guys need to tone it down and back away from the cliff.
Now, let's talk next about China, because in the last hour or so, we know that Donald Trump and Xi Jinping talked on the phone. China, as expected, is urging restraint. The U.S., as expected, wants China to do more. But with tensions so high, what can China do?
Yeah, well, these are not great dynamics in order to ask more of Beijing. I mean, I think from the Chinese perspective, they just gave a lot with the UN Security Council resolution. You know, actually, the Trump administration was within bounds to say they got good support from the Chinese. Of course, there's more that could be done, but that was a strong sanctions. Actually, if you follow North Korean media every day, they're talking about those sanctions and kind of rallying their people behind opposition to those sanctions. So from a Chinese perspective, Donald Trump is sort of undermining the success he just had in getting their support with the sanctions by moving the whole discussion over to military options and to war, which, of course, China adamantly opposes.
Yeah, and China wants diplomacy first, as well as America's key allies in the region. And there are reports of this diplomatic back channel between the U.S. and North Korea. What do you know about that? And if that does, in fact, exist, is diplomacy indeed the first choice for the Trump administration?
Yeah, well, I think it's very important to watch. You know, I mean, this is part of the history of U.S.-North Korea relations, even in times like this where on the surface we're seeing bombast. You usually don't get this much of it from the United States, but certainly we get it from North Korea. Behind the scenes, you have a back channel. And, you know, we do know that that back channel was already operative. It's what secured the release of the student who tragically then died soon after getting out. But the State Department officials have been meeting North Korean counterparts. And if you isolate the language of Secretary Tillerson, he's speaking a completely different language. He's talking in language that kind of meets the North Koreans halfway. So there is and this is the option that we should all support, there is a way in which, despite all this talk of war and military solutions, really we're heading toward some kind of breakthrough diplomacy.